I felt as though no matter how many hours I worked, how many of the little tricks I would use to try to, manage the workload, I still was never getting on top of things.
Expanding possibilities, the Mindset Zone.
I'm your host, Ana Melikian, and before we start, please remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone to access all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. And if you want to get the free chapter of my book, Mindset Zone, please go to mindset.zone/book. Today, our special guest is Mary Stellatello. Over the last 30 years, Mary has worked in the nonprofit, philanthropic, and corporate sectors, and she led 5 different nonprofit organizations focused on children and youth development, both domestically and internationally. And in 2010, she founded Vista Global Coaching and Consulting, which became Wisconsin's first certified B Corp in 2012. So welcome to the Mindset Zone.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm really thrilled to be with you here today to talk about this incredibly important topic.
Yes. And when we met via this With the Change, that is this group of women leaders in certified B corporations like yourself, and other purpose-driven companies who really believe that business can be a force for good. And I was lucky enough to speak again in the last retreat of the With the Change, and my topic was how to help purpose-driven leaders and organizations to increase their impact while preventing burnout. And after that, we had several Zoom calls about this topic of burnout prevention. And I decided, you have to come to my podcast. Please come to this. We have to speak about this. And you said yes. So thank you so much. Because you have several burnout stories and the recovery of the burnout. So from our conversations, I know that your encounters with burnout was not just one, was several. Think about one of them and tell us a little bit, how did you felt that you were burning out?
Well, thanks for that lovely intro. And I just want to add one other piece to us getting to know each other and arriving here today on this episode is, having the opportunity to take a formal assessment around burnout, which, is really fabulous to have that as a tool, because, burnout is sort of one of these intangible experiences. You can't necessarily explain it, but you feel it. And to be able to have a framework around evaluating it, I think is really helpful to allow someone to figure out what are some next steps. So that was fabulous, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's listening. And I'm sure Anna will share that as part of the show notes. But I didn't have that prior. I did just experience the various signs of burnout. And in particular, I think the experience that you and I talked most about was when I was running a global nonprofit organization that supported high school exchange students, and a very high stress and high risk business where you're dealing with minors and you're dealing with young people, thousands of them all over the world. We had close to 2,000 students that were coming into the United States for their high school experience. And the third day on the job, the number 2 person who had been there for almost 10 years told me that he was going to be leaving and that he took another job and he was leaving in less than 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so I, didn't have that nice honeymoon period that you often have when you come new into a role. I was on fast track of trying to gather as much information as I could from him to understand his role, which was the largest role in the organization of managing the field program. So he was managing hundreds of part-time contractors. And so he left, and basically I ended up doing his job and my job for close to 8 or 9 months, maybe 10. And in this type of environment, which is, there's not a lot of room for error if you're dealing with children and you're dealing with international consequences as well.
So I stress without any doubt was your throw like to the lion, so to speak, without having time to prepare. You had your professional experience, but was a lot of work to the capacity in terms of time that you had and even the resources that you can mobilize at the time because you were new in the organization. And how did you felt that pressure, and how did you felt that you feel that the description of burnout is a good description?
A few things, which, I mean, I had been in other jobs that were high requirement of effort. And, some of the other experiences that you and I talked about, I had also worked in an international environment. And when I left a position, I was working for a foundation, they hired 3 people to replace me. So that was a sign that perhaps I was trying to do too much. I have a pretty high capacity for managing projects and managing details. And, it's just part of my personality. But I could never, in this circumstance, I could never get above water. I felt as though no matter how many hours I worked, how many of the little tricks I would use to try to, manage the workload, I still was never getting on top of things. I was just racing from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next. I would basically say to anybody, if you need me for anything, don't send me an email. This was back in the days where everybody worked in the office.
Yes.
You're going to have to put something on my chair, because otherwise I'm not going to see it. I have hundreds of emails coming in, every day. And so, but I could still never manage it. I was, first time in my life, I have panic attacks. I'd never had that before. I thought I was having a heart attack, but people assured me I was just having a panic attack. So these were some of the signs that I knew I was not going in the right direction as far as maintaining. Was
almost that image that you were in a treadmill going very fast and you still had to juggle a ton of things, and you felt that things were dropping and you never could catch up. Right.
Absolutely. On a treadmill, and it was going faster, and I had no ability to get off the treadmill or hit the, the red button on the treadmill, which, we do have on treadmills to stop it.
Yes.
Yes. Indeed.
And even with all that and all the pressures, the toll in your emotional health, you stay in that position for a while.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, I did a while is, a relative term. I think in some circumstances, people would maybe think I got out of that position pretty quickly, but I would say that I knew within a few months that this was not the right place for me. Even though I had a dream and a vision, like this was the ideal, perfect, position. I wanted to, this is my 5th executive director role. I had a vision of this was the type of organization I wanted to lead. And that after that, I would transition into doing consulting work. That was sort of the plan. And I got into this role, and within a few months, I knew I wasn't going to be here for 3 years, which was sort of my initial vision. And I made it like 15 months.
15 months, that is still a long time, 15 months. And one of the things that I love about these stories that shows that burnout can come in very different shapes and forms. And when you were so graciously at the beginning speaking about the assessment that I use for assessing the burnout profile and the work that I do at that level, when I do any speaking engagement, often I like to start by saying that nobody until today asked me, what is burnout? Everybody has an intuitive feeling because they had some kind of experience that the title of burnout is a good description. And there are many types of experience, and you are describing one of it. So it's really, I think for anybody listening out there, burnout comes in many shapes and forms and degrees of intensity, but we should be aware of it and do something about it. And another thing that your story also illustrates very well is that sometimes in our professional career, mainly in the beginning, when we are young and we can handle I think with age we become wiser. But in the beginning, sometimes we have to go over several burnout cycles to realize that what we are living is not really the best way of leading our professional lives and our lives. And you had to go to several burnouts to realize that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think there's several factors. I mean, when you're younger, you do have more energy, and you are able maybe to take on more. Two, I would say, when we're earlier in our careers, and particularly as women, we have an added pressure of needing to prove ourselves.
Yes.
And so you're trying to demonstrate your value, your worth, and with that, pushing yourself to take on more, to demonstrate that you have the capability to advance in your career. And that, that's a myth of performance, and that's a whole nother conversation around bias in the workplace and being a woman leader. So stay tuned, I'm sure, for a different chapter, a different episode on that.
Yes.
But recognizing also that working harder and more doesn't actually equate to better performance or success.
Yeah, and the image that I use, because I was there myself during so many years, and I totally, at the time, do you remember the Energizer Bunny, the little pig of the battery commercials with the little drum that will going, drumming over and over and over, outlasting all the other ones? I proudly said, I'm like that Energizer Bunny. I keep working and working, and I will outlast everybody else. And I was proud of it. And I think many women, we are very proud of our capacity, of our work ethic, our capacity of endurance. And we keep going and going without realizing that if we use that energy in a different way, we can create a bigger impact out there and without sacrificing so much.
Yes, well said.
But you almost, how do you say, because I think is the pressure of the society, the culture, our own personalities there into play. You had burnout, you recover, you went back, you had another position, and then finally you decide to start your own company. That seems that was something that was already there in the background, but you decide to go for it. And in the process, you moved to a new place. So where were you before? And then how did you move to this new location?
Yeah. So I was in California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, after the position that I just talked to you, explained, I actually transitioned into consulting and I worked for a national firm. So I didn't immediately transition into starting my own business. That was way too risky in my mind of taking that step out. So I knew I wanted to do consulting, and I was interested in learning the ropes and the process. And so I was excited to have the opportunity to work for the national firm that focused on supporting nonprofits. So I felt like this was the great next step based on my experience and work experience. And so I did that for about 4 years, had another version of burnout, a little bit different, but and then I made a geographic move to Wisconsin, which was a big shift to the Midwest. And never thought I would at that point didn't think I would start my own business, but actually I couldn't stay with the firm. They weren't, interested in having me relocate, and I wanted to keep consulting. And so I really became an accidental entrepreneur and said, okay, I'll set up my shingle and do the same stuff that I've been doing, which I really enjoy, but under my own banner. And so that's when I started Vista Global.
And that move, and especially, I think the new location, the new environment, the new culture, you running your own company, create the opportunity for you to start to do things in a different way, correct?
Well, it definitely allowed me to kind of have a reset. I'm not sure if you talk to my husband, if he would agree that I was doing things in a different way. He certainly was a great touchstone for me. To give me a perspective of how you can work hard and do good work and not work 70 hours a week, because he didn't do that. He worked for a large institution. He worked, 8 to 5. He never worked at night. He never worked on the weekends. It was a very different way of integrating work into his whole life. And I also came from a family of entrepreneurs. My father is a serial entrepreneur, had multiple restaurants when I was growing up. I mean, that was my role model of work, where you blend work into your personal life, but you also don't ever stop it. It's sort of always there.
Yeah.
And so it was a really good touchstone.
Yeah, and even the San Francisco and the Odyssey is one of the places in the California that is more high pace, high demand, and so you were totally into the culture there. And for me, it's fascinating how much these systemic forces are putting some pressure on us and what is normal and what is expected. And sometimes we have to be like a duck out of water and seeing other people doing things in a different way. And so, there is a different way. We start to see our own blind spots.
Yeah. Well, yes. So the social cues also quite different. In the work, outside of work and how do you approach work, but, also everybody, that my husband interacted with, those then became my social circles were, doing things on the weekends, not working, doing things during the week, not working. And so it was about a mindset shift for me around a value, like I'm doing enough. And that the shoulds, where you are trying to drive your business. I mean, and understanding starting a new business isn't a 9-to-5 job. So, that doesn't happen. I mean, the first few years I was working many, many hours because you're doing everything. And that's kind of part of that ramping up period. But I also, I had to really rework the psychology of I am doing enough. I am doing more than enough. To start to try to turn the dial back on working constantly.
Yeah, and this associating our value that is almost that we are only worthy if we work. We are not worthy if we relax and enjoy and have a leisurely time. It's like if that diminish our quality as a person. I think that is the pressures there are very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
And being surrounded by an environment where that is one of the things that I'm originally from Portugal, and I was raised, and until my adult years, I was living in different European countries. Besides Portugal, I live in Spain and also in England. And there is a different culture in terms of the weekend time, and the off time is much more honored as something that is part of life. Even going to a coffee and on the weekends and spending time with friends and family, dining, there is a special place in the European culture for that I think here in the United States sometimes is look down to. Oh, they are losing their time.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. And by the way, I'm very excited. I'm going to Portugal in September, so I can't wait to have some time there. But, I have spent a lot of time in Latin America, and in particular, actually, I relocate my business to Mexico for the winter. My husband's retired and so we spend the winter months in Mexico, and I work from there, and I still work full time. But the pace, as you're just talking about, what's acceptable, what's expected, how do you approach your work and balance more, of your time, relational time, that is accepted and actually expected in the culture. And so that also helps me slow down and be more disciplined. And, I've also used other tips and tricks to shift my mindset around productivity. And, I think one of the things that helped me with that, and I know you and I talked about this in one of our previous calls, was reading Tony Schwartz's article early, like 2009, 8-9, around the productivity paradox and his work on the energy project. And, the focus being not managing your time, but managing your energy. And where is your energy? And how full is your tank of energy? And where do you get that energy? And so that for me was really helpful to start shifting the depletion of energy, and just saying, I have to block my calendar that says Zoom free time, because that's part of what's going to, help me increase my energy.
For me, that click happened when several years ago, I trained to run half marathon, and then I was following a schedule, and I realized there was a rest day. And then I started to learn about high performance in sports, and for athletes that a millisecond counts results. So they say they are measuring their results in milliseconds. They know that resting and recovering is essential for high performance. So the managing, like you are saying, the manage of the energies, the other tricks is more important, in my opinion, that managing the time is managing our energy, because we can achieve the same things or even more, I will argue, if we learn that. And then with the extra time is not to do more things, is to enjoy life. We have the right of place. It's creating, I like the term work sustainability. We speak about environment sustainability, and we also have to create a work sustainability that we can working until whenever we want in terms of our age, but we are enjoying and we are making a difference.
Yeah, to build on that, Anna, is valuing that not doing time with the same level of importance as the doing time, right? So like blocking that time on my calendar, Zoom free, and seeing that as important as this phone call that I'm going to have.
Yeah.
And that mindset shift is a really important one.
is honoring the being time.
Right.
We are beings, and we have to honor just being in this planet as something that is totally worth to honor and to be grateful for. So what will be for people listening that maybe are in the burnout cycles, or maybe are recovered from the burnout cycles? What are, like, can you give us some practice that you have put in place in the past years that helps you remain in that more enjoyable and sane space?
Sure. And I think, everybody has to find it for themselves. I also think that the pandemic really gave everyone universally a wake-up call of how do I reclaim my energy, because the fatigue, Zoom fatigue, the video fatigue is a real thing. And so people had to think about, how do I step away to regain my energy? So, I already mentioned the Zoom free hour, which I literally step away from my desk and you have lunch. I always put it on my lunch hour, and I'm really pretty sacred about that. So, having time during the day where I'm away from the screen. Another thing, just kind of in this technology theme, is, well, hey, could we just have a phone call? Oh, how 2010 that is, not to be on video. Whoa. But again, that lowers the cognitive load as far as your work, functioning with your work environment. Things to, help balance my work versus my non-work time. I walk my dog every morning. Very, very, committed ritual. I get up, I walk my dog, and I don't use anything in my ears. No podcast, no, nothing, no more sensory input, just what's happening in the world. Natural information input. That's how I start my days. And at the end of my day, my phone is not next to my bed. It's away from my bed. And I don't really look at my phone until after I walk the dog. So I break myself from the technology as well, to separate from that. And I'm pretty committed to exercise, but I have been my whole life. So that's easier for some than others. But those are a few things. And my husband and I always have dinner together, because he's the chef, and I get the benefit of great food at home.
I love it.
Super valuable.
And let me just underline some of the things that I think can give ideas that are so important for other people, even if they are in a time that is, they are working and is very intense, but doing that small breaks, like the lunch break, to restart is incredible, powerful. How do you say, the thing that we just can drag is when we start to do more mistakes, and it takes the double of the time to do the thing. So starting the day with a ritual, and then do that break at lunchtime to give us the restart, allow us to be much more focused and intentional in the afternoon. And I love that you are bringing nature, that the dogs, our amazing pets, can be so healthy for us because they make us to go outside, make us walk, and how you are integrating that in your day-to-day, and the meals, and leaving the electronics a little bit, being intentional in the use of the electronical devices. So all of that, we know that are good practice for well-being, for all aspects of well-being, and you are practicing them. Let me ask you one question about your sleep habits. Do you think that in this, did you start to increase your sleeping time? Because that is something that we have the tendency, when we are in the burnout cycle, to cut out. Oh, okay, I need a little bit more. I take it out of the sleep. Do you, are you taking more care about honoring your sleep?
Oh, yes, I am. And that's, that was definitely not the case. when I was starting my business, when I was living alone, I would work until midnight. I mean, I wouldn't work after midnight. So, that I thought was like, that's good.
And that
Now,
was the cutting point.
Yeah, that was the cutting point. I can't work into tomorrow, today. No. But now it's like, no, I mean, I very rarely will do anything after dinner. No,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I have to finish up a few things, but pretty much everything is shut down at my desk, and really try to get to bed between 9:30 and 10.
Yeah.
So that's a big shift, 2 hours shift that which has really made a big difference.
And for me, I'm also in that same journey, and it's incredible when I look to what I'm doing, the results that I get now comparing to 5-10 years ago. I have more things that I can do and create more impact out there, but it's almost the Parkinson law in effect, in the sense of if we have X amount of time, we will use that amount of time to do what we need to be done. So if we have twice the amount of time, we are going to use twice the amount of time. But if we reduce that, and if we manage to manage our energy and intention, we can do a lot in the more limited amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
So it's so important. So with this, and hopefully people have ideas here to really press the pause button and reflect about this, seeing how these cycles of burnout can taking a big toll in themselves and in their health, and hopefully will start to experiment with alternatives. And if they want to learn more about the work that you do as a coach and consultant, where they can learn more about you and about the work you do.
Well, of course, I'm in all of those platforms that everybody uses on social media and the internet, but I think the best way to get a deeper understanding of my work is on my website, which is www.vistaglobalcc, like coaching and consulting.com, vistaglobalcc.com. And then also on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active paying attention to my LinkedIn page, which is Mary Stellatello, my personal page.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I will make sure that all those links going in the show notes. And I also will put links to other episodes here in the Mindset Zone podcast, where I speak about burnout and burnout prevention, and also about the B Corp, because it's this great movement that is helping us rethink many things on how we are running our business, and proving that we can have successful businesses that produce profits, but also take care of the people, everybody involved, including ourselves as the business owners, and the planet.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we've connected on that path.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do also in the With the Change, that I will put a link here in the show notes about the With the Change too, because we really can be the change and taking care of ourselves at the same time.
Thank you, Anna. It was wonderful to have the opportunity to go deeper into this topic together.
My pleasure.
Expanding possibilities, the mindset.
Thank you for listening. And remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can find all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. And if you want to get a free chapter of my book, Mindset Zone, please go to mindset.zone/book. As always, I'm so grateful you are here. Expand what's possible for you, for the ones around you, for the world.